As a woman, I've noticed that girls enter puberty with crushes on androgynous, feminine boys, but as we get older, we become more comfortable with more adult, masculine men. However, is there any such evolution for boys? From the outside, it seems that as boys grow into men, they become less shallow, but this is not always the case. From the literature, there isn't much information on attractions. However, it appears that fetuses develop and solidify in early childhood and remain throughout life, whereas no such phenomenon is documented in women. Thus, I do not see much of a consistent trend either way. Story 1. Personality-wise, it has pretty much stayed the same. I have always liked women who can be cute and girly when they want, but who are also intelligent and caring. However, I have found that I am less and less attracted to perfect supermodel-type bodies. I appreciate softness and plumpness or a petite frame with a flat chest. All of those qualities that some people consider flaws make someone more unique and perfect to me. Story 2. I have realized over the years that my taste in women has matured alongside me. In my younger days, I was drawn to the thrill of a conquest, to a woman with an air of inaccessibility and mystery. But as I have grown, so has my understanding of what truly matters in a partner. These days, I deeply value a woman who possesses not just intelligence and wit, but also kindness and emotional intelligence. The allure of a sharp mind is still there, but it is now perfectly balanced with the warmth of a compassionate heart. A woman who can navigate the complexities of life with grace, who shows strength not in dominance but in understanding, is what turns my head now. It is less about ticking boxes on a superficial checklist and more about the subtle interplay of traits that make a person truly magnetic. An authentic connection with someone who can laugh at the absurdities of life and offer a shoulder during trials has become the most beautiful quality to me. Story 3. The only thing that has changed in my taste in women is their age. I am 44 years old and have 2 teenage daughters. I'm not going to lie and say that a woman in her 20s doesn't look good, but I'm not attracted to her like I would be attracted to her attractive 40-year-old mother. The idea of being sexual with someone who could be the same age as my daughter is utterly repulsive. I much prefer women closer to my age. Story 4. Looks-wise, I was never really attracted to certain body types and don't see myself ever being drawn to them. Personality-wise, yes, definitely. I am looking for someone who is smart, independent, trustworthy, and has a sense of humor. I don't think it's shallow to have preferences and to not date people who possess traits you are not attracted to. If I were to stop showering, for example, I can't expect my significant other to remain attracted to me or want to continue the relationship. Story 5. I shifted from valuing high achievement and ambition in a woman to appreciating her humanity. Previously, I was drawn to go-getters who excelled in demanding careers because I aspired to be like them. The woman I married fit this mold. She graduated from a prestigious university and secured a competitive job. Over time, however, it became clear that she lacked empathy and morals, exhibiting a low emotional intelligence. While she accomplished a great deal, she looked down on anyone she perceived as beneath her, which included most people. It was disheartening to hear her speak disparagingly about our friends and neighbors, labeling them as dumb and attributing all her problems to the losers surrounding her. Now, I am content with someone who works hard, perhaps harder, but without the need for an impressive resume or advanced degrees. She treats others with respect and kindness, viewing them as people rather than mere obstacles or stepping stones to her success. Story 6. I used to quite like smaller body types, then I started to appreciate larger women and men. My preferences have changed quite a bit. Story 7. Core taste hasn't changed much. The women I found attractive in the past are still attractive to me. I am more open to new types that I had not considered before. For instance, some women I previously thought were too curvy are now appealing to my taste, and I believe this is the main change. Story 8. I bounce around all over the place, to be honest. I don't really have a type. I just find women attractive, and if we have chemistry and a relationship develops, they become my type. If their body changes over time, then my preference changes as well. Story 9. I am less accommodating with individuals who demonstrate poor coping skills due to mental health issues. They have my empathy, but I no longer get involved with them. It is not healthy for me. Story 10. When I was a teenager, I was attracted to my age group. As I got older, I became more attracted to people older than me. For example, at 20, I considered dating someone between 18 and 20. At 23, I wouldn't go lower than my age, and now at 25, I find it challenging to find a 25-year-old I would date because 30-year-olds seem more appealing. I am bisexual, and this applies to both men and women I would date. I feel like people in their 30s have calmed down a bit. They have a more relaxed vibe. Story 11. I definitely love soft bodies, stretch marks, and natural flaws. The made-up, perfect tight bodies are actually a turn-off for me now. Story 12. For me, it happened when I stopped watching adult content. My standard of what I consider attractive changed significantly. I became much less picky about small details. Story 13. I used to only like women who were extremely skinny. I thought that was the standard, as I grew up with that idea planted in my mind. However, as I matured, I found myself increasingly interested in and attracted to chubbier women and those who were not conventionally attractive. Story 14. The things I like continue to change even now in my late 20s. It's not that I lose my interests. Rather, I gain new ones over the years in addition to the old ones. Story 15. I believe that the primary change in personality attraction from teens to adults lies in the preferences of male individuals. Teen boys are often attracted to whoever is the most visually appealing, while adult men tend to see qualities such as caring, kindness, love, and empathy. In defense of teenagers, many of their personalities, regardless of gender, may not be fully developed, leading them to fill that gap with what is considered trendy. As a result, much of their attraction is focused on physical appearance. Story 16. The realization I had after turning 30 was that I would never again be in my 20s. Yes, they look nice, but in my experience, that's all many of them had. And looks fade. Story 17. When I was a child, I thought enhanced breasts were very appealing, but as I grew older and experienced them firsthand, I realized that they were quite the opposite. Story 18. I have broadened my perspective on what I consider physically attractive. Additionally, personality and values matter significantly more. Story 19. Every day I get older, I become less interested in women. I have never had a specific type and have dated individuals with various looks and personalities. However, I have just lost interest. Story 20. My attraction has mostly been towards women around my age. As a teenager, I liked girls who were a couple of years older. In my 20s, it was just my age. Now, I prefer women who are my age or 2 to 3 years younger. Regarding type, I have always been attracted to tomboys. I have never been interested in conventional femininity, like pink and heels, which often annoyed me. However, I find the natural look and adventurous spirit of tomboys very exciting. Story 21. I'm in my 30s and I'm interested in different types of women now. I'm less focused on attractiveness and more interested in finding kind individuals. My younger self made poor choices and pursued only attractive women, which often led to disappointment. Story 22. I started out liking traditionally pretty girls but later discovered that I prefer chubby girls. Story 23. As a teenager, I was drawn to the typical beauty standards that women were expected to follow in the 2000s, which emphasized being as skinny as possible with enhancements. However, as I matured, I came to appreciate women who are, in my view, thicker and embody more of a post-pregnancy appearance. My girlfriend is absolutely perfect in terms of looks, and I still can't believe I won her over. Interestingly, she does not fit my teenage preferences in women, and I see that as a positive change. Story 24. I used to base attraction on looks. Now I find family values and hard work to be the greatest turn-on. This change likely comes from my experience with a charismatic bartender who struggles with alcoholism and bipolar disorder. Story 25. I'm white and I notice that I find more non-white women attractive than I did when I was a teenager or in my 20s. Now I am 56. Story 26. They have expanded rather than just changed. I still like people in their 20s and I appreciate women my own age, as well as older women in their 40s and 50s. Story 27. When I was younger, I was attracted to abusive women because they reminded me of my mother. As I have gotten older, I find myself preferring sweeter and gentler women who do not cause me pain on a daily basis. Story 28. I have shifted my focus from looks to character and personality. I would still appreciate a fit partner, but with the qualities of a good woman. There are too many beauty queens running around half-naked with attitudes that do not appeal to me. Story 29. I would say that my physical tastes have changed, but it's rooted in mindset, drive, and discipline. I've been going to the gym for 4 years this month. Women who lift weights are more attractive than ever before. I am referring to those who are in between CrossFitters and powerlifters, women who have muscle but maintain a normal amount of body fat. These are women you can tell are strong. Story 30. Care less about beauty and focus more on character. This is unfortunate timing, as character has become much harder to find. Story 31. In high school, I was focused on appearance. In college, I emphasized fitness. After college, personality became a significant factor. My wife has some minor birthmarks on her face and has gained weight, but I love her deeply because she is fascinating. Story 32. Nothing has changed, and I am almost 40. I am a socially conscious black woman with brown skin, curly hair, and a curvy figure. I have been captivated ever since I saw Raylan at the Scholastic Book Fair buying Goosebumps in the 1990s. Story 33. As a woman, I've noticed that girls enter puberty with crushes on very androgynous, feminine boys, but as we get older, we become more comfortable with adult, more masculine men. However, for boys, is there any such evolution? No, we never stop being attracted to androgynous, feminine boys. Story 34. Looks-wise, I am attracted to the same type of girls as I was in my 20s. It's just that what I am willing to accept in the context of a long-term relationship is different. Story 35. Trying hard, but have you heard the song Trashy Women by Confederate Railroad? The problem is the baggage they sometimes come with. Story 36. I was more visual in my teenage years and early 20s, and the personality I found most attractive was outgoing and extroverted with a showy presence. Much of what I found attractive back then, I feel quite differently about now, especially regarding personality. I am attracted to kindness, empathy, honesty, maturity, and practicality. Physically, my tastes haven't changed much, aside from placing a little less importance on looks. Story 37. As a 36-year-old man, I have been deeply hurt enough times that without communication, authenticity, trust, and loyalty, there is nothing for me. This is also why I am single. I can't seem to find anyone who works with me for long. I have been through a lot in my life, and it has fundamentally changed me as a person. My values and morals have changed significantly, and I need that in a woman as well. I am not looking for a partier or someone wild. Story 38. I find that at 35, I prefer women my age or in their 40s. I am not looking for someone who is still dealing with the chaos many people experience in their 20s. Stability and maturity have become more appealing. Story 39. Everyone jokes that they can't tell my spouse apart from my exes. They all have the same hairstyle, hair color, body type, and height. Story 40. I used to like curvy and voluptuous women when I was younger. I dated one for a long time. Over time, I found that they tend to gain weight. So now, I am more interested in thinner and petite women. Story 41. When I was younger, I was more concerned about how fit or attractive I appeared to women. I often found myself criticizing my own looks, which diminished my self-esteem. As a result, I lowered my standards for whom I would date, and I experienced some unusual relationships. Years later, I matured and set my standards to a respectable level. If a woman expected me to be mature enough for a relationship, she needed to be mature enough to get to know me as well. The moment I displayed that confidence, there was no shortage of beautiful women I could take out to dinner. However, many of them mirrored my past insecurities. Then one day I met my now wife. Not only is she exceptionally beautiful with an amazing figure, but her personality complements mine perfectly. We laugh together all the time. She is an incredible mother and wife, and I am grateful every day for this wonderful blessing in my life. Story 42. With my ex, my tastes evolved to be more aligned with her. She managed to talk me into dating, and I fell in love with her intellect. She didn't resemble anyone I had ever dated and even changed my appreciation for certain things. When she was pregnant, I found myself attracted to pregnant women. Afterward, she gained a bit of weight, but honestly, I didn't mind. My preferences changed again. She was the one I was attracted to, and it didn't matter what she looked like. I always found her attractive. Story 43. As you get older, you start to appreciate women who want to cater to you, rather than you working harder to court them. You also care more about your partner enjoying the experience, as you become more experienced and less focused on yourself, allowing you to observe better. A partner not being excited is a significant turnoff that I wouldn't have noticed as much in my teenage years. Story 44. I only dated slim blonde girls until I reached my 30s. Now I prefer brunettes with a healthy body mass index. Story 45. No, it's pretty much the same. I have become more aware of the ins and outs of certain types of women. While I might prefer heavier women, many do not fit the sympathetic image that people often portray. My best friend is the gold standard for me among women like that. She is comfortable in her own skin and accountable for her actions when necessary. I genuinely want to appreciate women for their personality rather than their appearance, but many women who might fit that description lack the personal means to engage in a relationship. Many women do not practice what they preach and expect men to tolerate behaviors they would not accept from us. Story 46. I am 46 now, and I would much rather have a 5 with her act together than a 10 who is a mess. When I was 20, I thought I could fix all the messy 10s, but you can't. If you mean physically, obviously, as you age, you become more attracted to older women. I am also much more tolerant of physical flaws than I used to be. I have always liked all shapes and sizes of women, so that hasn't changed. Story 47. Looks-wise, I definitely had my short hair tomboy phase, but that also came from me not being very secure in my own masculinity or identity. I was short. I never really actively thought this way, but perhaps I subconsciously believed that if a girl could be masculine, then I could learn from her. Then puberty hit, and I became significantly taller than my peers, which was definitely a confidence boost. I started finding myself and became much more attracted to typical feminine beauty, but I still don't have a particular body type. Personality-wise, I used to think that femme fatale were impressive. From personal experience, I learned that women who make a point to project their confidence and power into the world are often different and insecure in their private lives. I like girls who don't take themselves too seriously and have humor, but can also be responsible and communicate effectively in a relationship. I also need a certain understanding and patience because my job requires me to be away for long periods of time. Story 48. In my 20s, I was attracted to the pretty girl who showed interest in me. In my 30s, I began to value emotional maturity and seek less drama. Story 49. When I was a preteen, I had crushes on mean-looking girls who seemed like they could capture my attention. Marceline was my fictional crush when I first watched season 1 of Adventure Time. I was rarely interested in anyone who didn't give off that kind of vibe. My taste hasn't changed much. Fast forward to today, and my girlfriend likes to tease me. Story 50. I would not have thought so, but a while ago I was looking at older pictures, and 2 of my childhood crushes came up. I was surprised at how boyish they looked. There was a girl who had a big crush on me when we were 11 or 12, and she was very feminine and curvy. I distinctly remember her figure overwhelming me, if not scaring me. As I aged, I found myself liking more and more feminine looks and figures. I had long noticed a pattern in my girl crushes but never thought it applied to boys. After seeing those pictures, I realized it might. It makes sense. When we experience our first same-age crushes between the ages of 10 and 13, most boys and girls have not yet diverged that much in secondary sex characteristics. Story 51. Honestly, I have only ever been attracted to 2 women before, and I mean wanting to be in a relationship with them. There hasn't been any change with me. I'm not into heavier women, but they don't have to be super petite. When it comes to looks, there's nothing specific. However, I have always felt a little attraction to women of my own race. As for personality, just be a good person, but I do like women who are a bit goofy and those who are amused by me. Story 52. My type hasn't really changed much. However, as I've aged, compatibility has become a priority in what I'm looking for in a woman. We don't vibe or jive together. Story 53. Not really. I mean, when I was a kid, I liked girls my age with short hair. Now I like girls my age with short hair. I suppose I picked up a few preferences along the way, but I didn't really stop liking the things I used to like. Story 54. At first, I was open to any woman willing to be intimate. Nowadays, I am willing to wait for a woman who truly meets my standards of beauty. Story 55. After many relationships, I realized that having a list of things I want or don't want doesn't help. Being open is essential. It depends on the person, not on hobbies, body type, age, profession, or anything else. You don't want to date your clone. Story 56. In terms of pure visual attraction, I don't think it has changed much at all. I still have the same preferences for body type and overall appearance. My perspective has gained more context as I grow older, but I won't deny that the goth and scene styles still excite me. Regarding personality, I think it's pretty much the same as well. It's not that my tastes are identical. They have grown and become a bit deeper without fundamentally changing. Story 57. Before high school, I was attracted to whoever I found appealing. It was always one-sided. In high school, I was mostly drawn to anyone who spent time with me, usually those who were artsy and perhaps a bit chubby. They typically had good grades and were strong writers, as I wrote a lot of prose back then. They were often more extroverted than I was. During college, my preferences continued in a similar vein, and I discovered that women actually game. Being geeky or part of a fandom became essential to reduce social friction and to avoid judgment when I behaved like my true self. I didn't really have an interest in anyone. Now, I'm unsure. I feel more comfortable with someone who can engage in playful teasing and doesn't put me on a pedestal. Someone who cares about themselves and their surroundings. Fellow homebuddies. Story 58. Yes, my taste has changed a lot in 10 years. When I was younger, I considered physical appearance to be the most important factor. The most attractive woman was the best choice. Now, I understand that dating can be very challenging. Therefore, I view physical appearance as a basic requirement. I need to be attracted to you. However, after that, personality and compatibility are much more important. Story 59. I've evolved from liking any girl who shows interest in me to realizing that I do not have to be desperate. I have since developed a preference for nerdy, book-loving girls. Girls who read romance books are sweet and loving and are impressed by how I treat them. Story 60. I am 29 years old. Over time, I have come to consider physical appearance less important. As a teenager, attractiveness seemed to be everything. However, I have discovered that there are women who may be extremely attractive, yet I still wouldn't want to be in the same room with them for 5 minutes, regardless of any incentive. Story 61. I don't know, honestly. Right now, I happen to be very interested in girls who resemble a specific girl that I still think about. Tall, somewhat athletic with curves, long black curly hair, a cute smile, and attributes like being smart, funny, driven, open, personable, opinionated, kind, and understanding. That girl was an incredible presence. One that could take your breath away if she got too close. So yes, that's who I want. I suppose I always have, but the features of curly hair and height are new to me. Story 62. Yes, my preferences have changed in terms of looks. From ages 13 to 17, I only liked blonde girls. Between 17 and 23, I became interested in girls of all races, but only slim ones. Now, I appreciate girls who are a bit chubby. The main change for me is that I prioritize personality over looks every day. If you're an attractive woman but have a bad attitude, I'm not interested. Before, I would tolerate it just because you looked good. Story 63. I have thought about it for a while. I would say that I have a wider range of physical attraction than I did as an adolescent, but I am much quicker to leave if I'm not enjoying myself now. Story 64. I have always liked brunettes, but I often end up with blondes. When it comes to men and women, My preference ratio is 15-1 for blondes compared to brunettes. I have no idea why. Story 65. Looks-wise, as a teenager, I always liked small, skinny women. However, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that women with curves and maternal figures are where it's at. Story 66. In terms of appearance, it has remained relatively unchanged but has expanded slightly. Regarding personality, I have become better at recognizing my preferences. Story 67. I like to think I'm not as shallow as I used to be. Nowadays, I really enjoy conversations with women who are smarter than I am, which doesn't take much. Sadly, those opportunities are few and far between, possibly because I'm 83. Story 68. My fiancé shared that he initially settled for women because he felt he didn't deserve anyone or would ever find someone special. He would accept attention from anyone who showed interest in him. However, after we became friends for 7 months before dating, he began to believe he deserved better. Story 69. I started out wanting women in my life, but as I get older, I find I want less of them. I believe I could be happier on a daily basis with less drama. Story 70. When I was 20 years old, I was attracted to and wanted to date women my age. Now that I am 30, I find myself attracted to and wanting to date women who are 30. Young adults now appear very young to me. Personality-wise, kindness has become very important to me. I prefer intelligence and thoughtfulness over looks or an outgoing personality. Story 71. They haven't. I still prefer feminine, petite women, which I feel is a relatively broad category in itself. Story 72. I no longer tolerate low-quality individuals. Anyone who loves to gossip, be involved in drama, is excessively negative, or fails to work on self-improvement is an instant turn-off for me. My criteria for women have only increased as I have gotten older. I seek not only beauty but also intelligence and self-awareness. My standards have indeed risen with age. I am perfectly fine being single and maintaining these standards. Additionally, I was often overlooked by women during my teenage and early adult years. Now that I am self-made and have no reliance on anyone else, I tend to be more selective. Story 73. Nope. Petite and delicate for the win. Sexual dimorphism is a reality regardless of the justifications made by others. Story 74. Well, when I first hit puberty, my first crush was a cute, nerdy, introverted girl with dark hair and eyes. So was my second and my third. Approaching 30, the only real difference is that I grew up in a predominantly white area, where my school had 5 black students, 2 Indian students, and 1 Korean student, none of whom were in my year. I unironically never really realized there were many girls who didn't look like those around me. I'm still overwhelmingly attracted to cute, nerdy, introverted women, but I am particularly interested in women of different ethnic backgrounds, especially from Southeast Asia, India, and Latin America. I find them significantly more attractive visually and also enjoy learning about their languages and cultures. Personality-wise, I have always valued loyalty, honesty, nerdiness, introversion, and a demure nature, qualities that indicate they would make a good mother to our children. Story 75. Physically, I have always been attracted to slender, awkward, nerdy girls, as nerdy can be considered an aesthetic. This preference has not changed and has somewhat solidified as I have experimented with different types. Mentally, the situation is quite different. After my divorce, I was compelled to examine the types of women I was choosing and the reasons behind my choices. I found myself attracted to broken, insecure, manipulative women, which reflected classic issues with maternal relationships. Once I addressed those concerns, I noticed a significant change in the women I found attractive and those who were attracted to me. Yes, when I was younger, looks and sex appeal were much more important to me, to the extent that I overlooked some significant red flags. Story 76. If they don't, you become an unkempt older man. I think the changes are a normal part of aging. If they don't occur, it may be a sign of poor adjustment. Story 77. As a boy around 13 to 14, I had a preference for older women. Now at 33, when I am the older one, I prefer younger women in the 20 to 25 age range, completely ignoring women older than me. Story 78. Until my early 20s, I think my taste was more influenced by the woman I was in love with or infatuated with. Since then, it has been pretty steady. Story 79. I still prefer petite ballerinas. Nearly all the women I have ever dated have been dancers in one way or another. One was also a professional ballerina and is now a choreographer. Story 80. My preferences have remained consistent for a long time, but I have had to lower my standards repeatedly. I am attracted to tall, slim, athletic women with smaller breasts and hips, and that is the only body type I will consider for a serious relationship moving forward. As I get older and more established, I hope to be able to raise my standards. For something casual, I can accept a bit of extra weight, but in the long run, I tend to lose attraction entirely. Yes, I realize I may have resigned myself to a life of celibacy. Story 81. Body type preference remains the same, athletic but not overweight, though my age range has expanded. When I was 20, I thought women aged 30 to 40 looked ancient. Now I'm 30, and as I look around, I realize there are many pretty women I didn't notice before. They don't look old at all. I guess I'm getting older. Story 82. Yes, but some things stayed the same. I used to like intelligent, rebellious party girls. I grew to like intelligent, rebellious, responsible women. I have always preferred, though not exclusively chosen, women who are 5 feet 5 inches to 5 feet 8 inches tall, slender, with Eastern European features, light eyes, high cheekbones, and round or heart-shaped faces. However, over the years, I have been attracted to women of many types. There is something intangible about certain women that really defies description. The way they move, talk, and use body language. Story 83. Unfortunately, the girl I dated through high school was closer to crazy than sane. I developed a taste for excitement. Excitement is a lot of fun, and the intimacy is quite fantastic until it isn't. These days, I am looking for someone more stable. Excitement can be enjoyable, but it tends to derail your life. I have too many responsibilities to just wander off into the woods to do mushrooms on a Tuesday afternoon. I am less interested in how a woman looks and more interested in who she is as a person. I am looking more for compatibility than attractiveness. The women I find physically appealing haven't changed much. Overall, I think the change for me has just been growing up and realizing that there is more to life than wild intimacy and unpredictability. Story 84. Honestly, I have become pickier as I have gotten older. I am more likely to end relationships sooner than I did before. I find mothers in yoga pants more attractive lately, although I am unsure if that has to do with age. Story 85. When I was younger, I used to be attracted to very fit, lean women. Now, I tend to prefer curvier women. Story 86. I have always liked women with an ample figure, long hair, and fair or tan skin. In terms of personality, I didn't have much of a preference while growing up, but now I find that I prefer intellectually oriented women and friends who have a strong sense of dark humor and do not take themselves or the world too seriously. Story 87. I used to prefer smaller women. However, as time passed and I often heard that women typically like tall men, I began to appreciate taller women. If I have a child, I hope they will be tall, especially if it's a son. Therefore, I am mainly interested in tall women. Story 88. My response focuses on physical attractiveness. Many may not readily admit it, but a lot of men are typically most attracted to women around the age of 24. I thought as I grew older there would be a shift in the age of women I found most attractive, but this hasn't happened as I expected. I'm 37 years old now, and that 24-year-old woman still remains the peak of attractiveness for me. Story 89. I am attracted to supermodels and kind women for different reasons. In the long run, I do not want a supermodel with serious issues. Story 90. I'm 30. When I was a teenager, I liked older women. Now I prefer women who are 18 years old. Appearance is not that important. It has more to do with their effort and desire. Story 91. Take it for what it is. I have had nothing but bad luck with lighter-skinned females. I won't date anyone lighter than my coffee, as I use cream and sugar. Story 92. I feel like my younger self was really into big breasts. Now I still like them, but it's not really something I prioritize. I prefer a fit, petite body with a nice backside and proportional breasts. That's the way. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.